Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of humanity's first extrasolar embassy, watching the swirling nebula that had become her home for the past 3 months. The massive structure, hastily constructed at the edge of the Sol system, housed representatives from 27 alien civilizations, all members of the Galactic Council, who had arrived after humanity's quantum frequency breakthrough accidentally interfered with their long-range communications. The interference had been unintentional, but it had revealed humanity's presence to the wider galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. Their experimental quantum communications array had somehow tapped into the Council's secure channels, causing a cascade of disruptions that threatened to destabilize diplomatic relations across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Ambassador, her eye assistant's voice interrupted her thoughts. The Murith delegation is requesting an immediate audience. They're citing Protocol 7 of the Emergency Measures Act. Chen straightened her jacket, suppressing a smile. After 12 weeks of intensive study, she knew the Council's protocols better than most of its junior members. Protocol 7 was meant for imminent threats to galactic stability, exactly the kind of threat humanity had inadvertently created. "Tell them I'll meet them in the neutral chamber," she responded, already moving toward the station's central hub. The neutral chamber, with its adaptive atmospheric controls and gravity modulation, was the only space where all species could meet in relative comfort. As she walked, she mentally reviewed what she knew about the Murith, crystalline beings who communicated through precisely modulated electromagnetic pulses. They were among the Council's oldest members, and, ironically, the ones most affected by humanity's quantum mishap. The chamber doors parted with a soft hiss, revealing the Murith delegation. Their crystalline forms caught the ambient light, refracting it into complex patterns that Chen had learned to read as emotional states. Right now, they were projecting what she interpreted as severe agitation. "Honorable representatives," Chen bowed slightly, following the proper protocol. "I understand your concern." Understanding is insufficient. The lead delegate's translation matrix converted their electromagnetic pulses into audio. "Your species' reckless experiments have compromised our entire communication network. The Council demands immediate cessation of all quantum research." Chen had expected this demand. It was the same one they'd been making since first contact. But now, she had something they didn't expect, a solution that would benefit everyone. "With respect," she replied, activating the holographic display embedded in the chamber center. "We've done more than understand. We found a way to not only fix the interference, but to enhance your existing network." The display came to life, showing a complex diagram of interweaving quantum fields. The Murith delegates' crystalline forms shifted, their refracted light patterns indicating intense interest. "Our reckless experiments revealed a fundamental flaw in the current galactic communication system," Chen continued. "The interference wasn't random. It exposed underlying quantum instabilities that have been building for centuries. Given another decade, your network would have collapsed on its own." The lead delegate's crystalline structure pulsed rapidly, their equivalent of rapid calculation. "You are certain of this?" "We've run 10,000 simulations," Chen confirmed, expanding the hologram to show the probability matrices. "But more importantly, we've developed a solution that would make the network 10 times more stable and 100 times faster." The chamber fell silent as the Murith processed this information. Chen knew this was the crucial moment. Humanity's acceptance into the galactic community hinged on whether these ancient beings would see them as reckless children or valuable partners. Finally, the lead delegate spoke. "Show us." Chen's fingers danced across the holographic controls, bringing up the detailed schematics of what humanity had named the Quantum Harmonic Interface. It was elegant in its simplicity, a way to synchronize quantum states across vast distances without the instabilities that plague the current system. "The solution requires combining our quantum frequency technology with your crystalline transmission arrays," Chen explained. "Neither system works perfectly alone, but together." She let the implication hang in the air. The Murith delegates conferred among themselves, their electromagnetic pulses creating a symphony of light and energy that the chamber's sensors struggled to process. Chen waited patiently, knowing that pushing them would only delay their decision. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the lead delegate turned back to her. "Your solution is elegant," they admitted, "but implementation would require giving your species access to restricted council technology." "Yes," Chen agreed, "just as it would require us sharing our quantum frequency discoveries with you. That's rather the point, isn't it? Trust has to start somewhere." The lead delegate's crystalline form shifted into a configuration Chen had never seen before. "Perhaps," they said slowly, "it is time for the council to evolve. Your species has shown both wisdom and innovation. We will advocate for a full hearing of your proposal before the council." Chen maintained her diplomatic composure, but inside, she was celebrating. A full council hearing was the first step toward membership, something that usually took newly discovered species decades to achieve. "Thank you," she said simply. "Humanity looks forward to proving ourselves worthy of the council's trust." As the Mirth delegation left the chamber, Chen allowed herself a small smile. It wasn't acceptance yet, but it was a start. Humanity had taken its first real step into the galactic community, not through force or fear, but through innovation and diplomacy. The quantum communication crisis that had threatened to isolate humanity had instead become their gateway to the stars. Now they just had to prove they deserved their place among them. The council chamber hummed with tension as Ambassador Chen watched the holographic representations of two warring species circle each other like predators. The Voxari, with their plasma-based bodies contained within advanced environmental suits, burned bright enough to cast shadows. Opposite them, the Nexus Collective's biomechanical avatars moved with precise, calculated movements that betrayed their artificial nature. For 3,000 years, these two civilizations had fought over the resource-rich Helios sector. Their conflict had become so deeply ingrained in council politics that most members simply worked around it, treating it as an immutable fact of galactic life. But humanity had a habit of questioning immutable facts. "The council recognizes Ambassador Chen of Earth," the arbitrator announced, their multi-layered voice resonating through the chamber. The other representatives turned to face her, some with obvious skepticism, others with careful neutrality. Chen rose from her seat, activating her own holographic display. "Honorable Council, I've spent the last month studying the Helios conflict, and I've noticed something that seems to have been overlooked." The Voxari representative flared brightly, their equivalent of an incredulous laugh. "What could your infant species possibly see that we have not in 3 millennia? "Patterns," Chen replied simply. "Specifically, weather patterns." The chamber fell silent. Even the Nexus Collective's avatars stopped their constant microscopic movements. The Helios sector sits at the intersection of 3 major stellar wind corridors. Chen continued, expanding her holographic display to show the complex atmospheric dynamics of the region. Every 712 years, these winds align in a way that creates what we would call a perfect storm. She highlighted specific dates in the historical record. The first major battle between your peoples occurred during one of these alignments. So did the Battle of Broken Stars and the Plasma Surge conflict. In fact, every major escalation in this war corresponds exactly with these stellar wind patterns. The Voxari representative's plasma form pulsed rapidly. "What relevance does this have?" "These wind patterns affect both of your species fundamentally," Chen explained. "The Voxari's plasma forms become more energetic, more aggressive during these alignments. Meanwhile, the electromagnetic interference disrupts the Nexus Collective's neural networks, causing them to perceive threats more readily. You've been fighting a war that's been partly driven by astronomical phenomena." The Nexus Collective's primary avatar stepped forward. "Our historical records confirm these correlations. However, this knowledge does not solve the fundamental resource conflict." "Actually, it does," Chen smiled, "because these same wind patterns that have been driving your conflict also create an opportunity. When properly harnessed, the interaction between plasma energy and electromagnetic fields can be used to create self-sustaining energy matrices. The very thing you've been fighting over could be generated in virtually unlimited quantities. She brought up the schematics for what her team had dubbed the Helios Harvester. It was an elegant fusion of Voxeri plasma technology and Nexus computational precision, with some human innovations thrown in for good measure. Together, your civilizations could turn the Helios sector into an energy production center that would benefit not just your peoples, but the entire galactic community. The technology would require both of your species' unique capabilities to operate, forcing cooperation rather than conflict. The chamber erupted in multiple conversations, each species discussing the implications in their own way. The Voxeri's plasma forms created intricate patterns of light and energy, while the Nexus Collective's avatars linked together in complex computational arrays. The arbitrator raised all four hands for silence. This is unprecedented, but the logistics of such cooperation would be complex, Chen agreed, which is why Earth offers to serve as a neutral third party, overseeing the initial implementation and helping establish protocols for long-term cooperation. And what does humanity gain from this? The Voxeri representative demanded. Experience, knowledge, the opportunity to learn from both your civilizations while helping turn a source of conflict into a source of prosperity. Chen paused, then added, and of course, a small percentage of the energy production for Earth's growing colonial efforts. The Nexus Collective's avatars formed a perfect circle, their gesture of deep contemplation. Your proposal has merit. The computational models suggest a 78.3% chance of success, significantly higher than any previous peace initiative. The Voxeri representative's plasma form shifted through several colors before settling on a deep blue. We would be willing to conduct a trial implementation, under strict oversight. Chen nodded diplomatically, though inside she was elated. That's all we ask for. A chance to prove that cooperation can be more profitable than conflict. As the council chamber buzzed with activity, Chen caught the arbitrator studying her intently. You knew, they said quietly. You knew this solution would require human oversight, giving your species a legitimate reason to be involved in council affairs. The solution itself is genuine, Chen replied honestly. The fact that it helps establish humanity's place in the galactic community is simply an added benefit. The arbitrator's expression shifted in what Chen had learned to recognize as amusement. Perhaps your species will bring more changes to our community than we anticipated. Looking around the chamber at the various representatives now engaged in eager discussion about the Helios Harvester project, Chen couldn't help but agree. Humanity had found its niche, not as the strongest or most advanced species, but as innovators who could see old problems in new ways. The question was, would the rest of the galaxy be ready for the changes that such innovation might bring? Dr. Maya Rodriguez stood before the trials chamber, her heart pounding against her ribs. After humanity's successes with the quantum communications crisis and the Helios sector resolution, the Council had agreed to fast-track Earth's membership application. There was just one catch. They had to pass the traditional trials of aptitude. No species had ever completed all 7 trials in less than a decade. Earth had been given 3 months. The third trial begins, announced the Chamber Eye, its voice resonating through the vast space. Category: Crisis Management. Difficulty: Maximum. Maya glanced at her team. Engineer James Chen, Ambassador Sarah Chen's brother, worked rapidly at his holographic interface. Dr. Kerry Patel, xenobiologist extraordinaire, was already analyzing the incoming data streams. Captain David Okonjo stood ready at the tactical display, his military experience crucial for what they all knew would be a complex challenge. The chamber darkened, then filled with a perfect holographic recreation of a Class 5 singularity approaching a populated system. Maya's blood ran cold. This was the exact type of crisis that had wiped out 3 civilizations in the galaxy's history. Estimated time to system impact: 6 hours. The AI continued. Population: 8.3 billion sentients across 7 planets. Available resources: Standard Council Emergency Response Fleet. Maya felt the weight of countless alien eyes watching from the observation deck above. This wasn't just a test. It was a statement about humanity's readiness to handle galactic-scale responsibilities. Initial analysis complete, Carrie announced, her fingers dancing through the holographic data. The Singularity's approach vector is destabilizing the local space-time fabric. Traditional evacuation methods will be impossible once the distortion field reaches critical mass in 2 hours. Can't we just divert it? David asked, already plotting potential courses. James shook his head, his hands moving rapidly through engineering calculations. The mass is too great. Even if we used every ship in the response fleet as kinetic engines, we'd only alter its course by a few degrees. Not enough to save the system. Maya watched the holographic simulation, her mind racing. Every other species that had faced this trial had attempted either evacuation or diversion. All had failed. Which meant, "We're thinking about this wrong," she said suddenly. "We can't move the singularity, and we can't move the people. But what if we moved the space between them?" Her team looked at her like she'd gone mad, but Maya was already pulling up the theoretical physics models. "James, remember that paper you showed me about the quantum harmonic interface? About how it creates microscopic space-time bridges?" James's eyes widened. "You want to create a system-wide quantum tunnel. That's never been done before." "Neither has passing all 7 trials in 3 months," Maya countered. "Carrie, what's the minimum safe distance needed from the Singularity's distortion field?" 2 light-years, Carrie replied immediately. "But Maya, even if we could create a tunnel that big, how would we stabilize it?" "We don't," Maya said, her fingers flying over the controls. "We use the Singularity's own gravitational field as a power source. The worse the distortion gets, the stronger our tunnel becomes." David caught on first, like a cosmic pressure valve. "The more it pushes, the more we redirect." "Exactly. James, I need you to reconfigure the emergency fleet's quantum communications arrays. We're going to turn them into the biggest quantum harmonic interface ever built." The next 4 hours were a blur of calculations, adjustments, and heart-stopping near failures. They worked through problems that should have taken years to solve, forcing physics to bend to their will through sheer human determination and creativity. When the Singularity was less than 30 minutes from the system, Maya initiated the final sequence. The emergency fleet, arranged in a precise geometric pattern, activated their modified quantum arrays simultaneously. Space itself seemed to shudder. "Quantum tunnel forming," James reported, his voice tense. "Field strength at 20, 40, 60%. The Singularity's approach was visibly distorting space now, creating terrifying ripples in the fabric of reality. But as its power grew, so did the strength of their quantum tunnel. Tunnel stability achieved. James shouted triumphantly. "Ready for system transport on your mark." Maya took a deep breath. They would only get one shot at this. Execute transport sequence. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, in a display that would be remembered for centuries to come, an entire star system shifted 2 light-years through space, in an instant, safely out of the Singularity's path. The chamber eye's voice broke the stunned silence. "Third trial. Passed. Time to completion. 5 hours, 47 minutes. A new council record." From the observation deck came a sound Maya had never heard before, the combined applause of 27 different species, each expressing appreciation in their own unique way. The Voxeri flared like miniature suns, the Murith created crystalline harmonies, and the Nexus Collective pulsed in perfect synchronization. "How did you know it would work?" David asked quietly as they watched the holographic Singularity pass harmlessly through the space where a populated system had been moments before. Maya smiled. "I didn't, but that's what humanity does best. We see impossible problems and think, maybe if we try it this way. Sometimes we fail spectacularly, but sometimes we move entire star systems, Carrie finished, shaking her head in amazement. As they prepared for the fourth trial, Maya caught glimpses of the council members conferring urgently among themselves. She knew what they were discussing. Humanity had just demonstrated not only the ability to handle a crisis, but to do so in a way that no other species had even considered. They weren't just passing the trials anymore. They were rewriting the rules of what was possible. And in doing so, they were proving that humanity's unique approach to problem-solving might be exactly what the galactic community needed. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat alone in her office aboard the embassy station, staring at the holographic document floating before her. After passing all 7 trials in record time, after helping resolve ancient conflicts and revolutionizing galactic communications, humanity had finally received the full membership terms for the Galactic Council. The price was higher than anyone could have imagined. "Have you told Earth's governments yet?" Maya Rodriguez asked, entering the office. The physicist looked exhausted after completing the final trial just hours earlier. "How do you tell 20 billion people that the cost of joining the galactic community is giving up their biological evolution?" Sarah replied, her voice hollow. "The document's terms were clear. Every council species underwent genetic standardization, a process that would lock human DNA into its current state, preventing any further evolutionary changes. The Council claimed it was necessary for long-term stability, preventing member species from evolving in ways that might threaten the alliance. They're asking us to stop being human," Sarah continued. "Our ability to adapt, to change, to evolve, it's fundamental to who we are." Maya sat down heavily. "Have you looked at the technical specifications for the standardization process?" Sarah nodded. "It's remarkable technology. It would eliminate genetic diseases, extend our lifespans, even give us limited regenerative capabilities. But it would also freeze our genetic code permanently." "Not exactly," Maya said, pulling up her own holographic display. "I've been analyzing the process since we first learned about it. There's something fascinating about how it works." Sarah leaned forward, watching as Maya brought up complex molecular diagrams. "What did you find?" "The standardization process doesn't actually stop evolution, it just controls it. It creates what they call stability channels in the genetic code. Think of them like preset paths that any changes must follow." "But that's still limiting us," Sarah argued. "Instead of natural evolution, we'd be confined to their pre-approved patterns." Maya's eyes sparkled with that look she got when she was about to suggest something either brilliant or insane. "Unless we modify the channels themselves." Sarah stared at her. "That's not possible. The Council's been using this technology for millennia." "Yes, but they've never had to account for human creativity, combined with quantum mechanics." Maya expanded her display, showing a complex series of calculations. "Remember how we modified the quantum harmonic interface to solve the communications crisis? The same principles could apply here." "You want to hack the genetic standardization process?" Sarah asked incredulously. "Not hack. Enhance. Look at these patterns." Maya highlighted specific sequences in the molecular structure. "The stability channels are quantum-based. They're designed to prevent unexpected mutations, but they also have to be flexible enough to allow for environmental adaptation. If we introduce a modified quantum field during the standardization process, we could create our own channels." Sarah finished, beginning to understand. "Instead of following their preset paths, we could design our own evolutionary framework," Maya confirmed. "One that preserves our ability to adapt and change, but in a controlled way that wouldn't threaten the Council's stability requirements." Sarah stood, pacing the office as she thought through the implications. "Even if this works, we'd be deliberately modifying a fundamental Council technology. If they found out." "They don't have to," Maya said quietly. "The modifications would be at the quantum level, undetectable, unless someone knew exactly what to look for. And by the time anyone might notice that humans were still evolving, it would be far too late to undo our membership." Sarah stopped pacing, looking out at the nebula that had become so familiar. "It's risky. If we're caught, we'd be violating the trust of every council species. And if we don't try, we'd be violating something even more fundamental, our own nature, Maya countered. Humanity's greatest strength is our ability to adapt, to find new solutions, to evolve not just biologically, but culturally and technologically. Giving that up, wouldn't we be losing the very thing that makes us valuable to the Council in the first place? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, weighing options and consequences. Finally, she turned back to Maya. How long would it take to develop this modification? With a small, trusted team, 2 weeks. The standardization ceremony is scheduled for 30 days from now. Sarah nodded slowly. Do it. But keep the team small. Just you, James, and Carrie. I don't want anyone else involved. What about the governments back home? Maya asked. They'll need to agree to the standardization process. I'll convince them to accept the terms, Sarah said, a hint of her diplomatic smile returning. I'll just leave out the part about our enhancement to the process. As Maya left to begin her work, Sarah turned back to the membership terms. The Council thought they were asking humanity to give up its potential to change in exchange for stability. Instead, they were about to learn, though they might not realize it for centuries, that humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy might be proving that true stability comes not from preventing change, but from learning to guide it. The Grand Chamber of Unity aboard the Council's ancient station was alive with energy as representatives from every member species gathered for humanity's acceptance ceremony. The vast space, with its crystalline walls that seemed to capture and amplify the light of distant stars, had witnessed the joining of many civilizations over the millennia, but none quite like this. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the center of it all, her ceremonial robes reflecting the chamber's ethereal light. Beside her, Maya Rodriguez and her team tried to maintain composed expressions, though their eyes betrayed their nervous energy. They alone knew what would truly happen when the standardization process began. The arbitrator, their form shifting through various states of matter in a display of ceremonial significance, approached the central platform. We gather today to witness the joining of the species known as humanity to the Grand Alliance of Civilizations. Through innovation, they have proven their worth. Through wisdom, they have shown their readiness. Through sacrifice, they demonstrate their commitment. Sarah caught Maya's subtle nod. The modifications to the standardization process were ready, hidden within layers of quantum mechanics so elegant that they appeared to be natural phenomena. Before we proceed, the arbitrator continued, the Council recognizes Vox Alpha of the Voxari, who wishes to speak. The Voxari representative's plasma form brightened as they moved forward. When humanity first disrupted our communications network, many of us viewed them as primitive and dangerous. Yet they turned crisis into opportunity. When they encountered our ancient conflict with the Nexus Collective, they saw patterns we had missed for millennia. In the trials, they showed us new ways to solve problems we had deemed impossible. The crystalline form of the Murith representative shimmered in agreement. They have challenged our assumptions about what is possible. Perhaps, they paused, their light patterns shifting in what Sarah had learned to recognize as deep consideration. Perhaps that is exactly what our alliance needs. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as other representatives added their own observations. The Nexus Collective spoke of humanity's unique problem-solving abilities. The ethereal confluence praised their adaptability. Even the normally silent quantum architects acknowledged the elegance of human innovations. The arbitrator raised all their limbs for silence. Your words are noted and will be recorded in the Great Archive. Now we proceed with the standardization ritual. Ambassador Chen, do you speak for Earth? Sarah stepped forward. I do. And do you accept the terms of membership, including the standardization process that will guide your species' future development along the approved paths of stability? Sarah's heart raced, but her voice remained steady. We do. The chamber's lighting dimmed as ancient machinery hummed to life. A soft blue glow emanated from the floor, surrounding Sarah and her team. This was the moment of truth. Initiating species-wide standardization. The Chamber's AI announced, quantum field generators engaging, stability channels forming. Maya's fingers moved subtly at her side, activating their hidden modifications. The blue glow shifted almost imperceptibly, taking on a slightly different frequency that only they knew the significance of. Process at 20%. The AI continued. Genetic markers accepting stability protocols. Sarah felt a tingling sensation throughout her body as the standardization field did its work. But unlike the rigid structure it was supposed to impose, she sensed something more fluid, more natural, like a river finding its course rather than a dam being built. 60%. Evolutionary pathways being established. The arbitrator watched closely, their form rippling with intense focus. Sarah held her breath, wondering if they could sense what was really happening. But the process continued smoothly, their modifications working exactly as Maya had designed. Standardization complete, the AI finally announced. Human genetic code has been successfully integrated into the stability framework. The blue glow faded, and Sarah let out a careful breath. They had done it. Humanity had technically accepted the Council's requirements while preserving their fundamental nature, their ability to adapt and evolve, just in a more controlled and directed way than before. The arbitrator raised their primary limbs. By the power vested in this council, we hereby welcome humanity as full members of the Galactic Alliance. May your contributions continue to enrich our shared civilization. The chamber erupted in the unique expressions of approval from each species. But as Sarah looked around at the celebrating representatives, she couldn't help but smile at the irony. They had just welcomed humanity into their ranks, thinking they had ensured our stability through standardization. Instead, they had inadvertently ensured that human innovation and adaptability would continue to influence galactic society for generations to come. As the ceremony concluded, the arbitrator approached Sarah privately. "I sense," they said quietly, "that humanity will bring many changes to our alliance." Sarah met their gaze steadily. Change is the only constant in the universe. The trick isn't to prevent it, but to guide it towards something better. The arbitrator's form shifted in what might have been amusement. "Indeed. Welcome to the galaxy, Ambassador Chen. I suspect the next few centuries will be interesting." Looking out at the stars visible through the chamber's crystalline walls, Sarah couldn't help but agree. Humanity had found its place in the galactic community not by conforming to their standards, but by finding creative ways to bridge the gap between stability and progress. The journey ahead would be challenging, but they would face it as they always had, with innovation, determination, and an unwavering drive to evolve and improve. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter as humanity took its first official steps into a much larger universe, carrying with them the secret that would ensure they remained truly human even as they became part of something far greater than themselves.